Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar on finding quality care for your family member. So now I would like to introduce the three of us who are here this evening. We have Sherry Morrison, who is with Great Circle. We have Sue Fleming, who is here with the Recreation Council, and myself, Ann Mangelsdorf, who is with the St. Louis Arch Respite Program. And I want to say that the three of us offer very different or just modified differences in the types of respite that we provide. So that is why we are all here. We are going to be talking about getting a break, and we have some tools we're going to introduce to you that will help you with this process, because it's not just important in having a list of people that you can call. I think it's more important to know what it is you want, how it's going to impact your family, and how are you going to find that person? Because even if someone else has handpicked that person for you, they don't know your family, they don't know your individual family members. And so you still have to introduce them to specific things that have to do with family and with caregiving. When I talk about the Life Course Respite Portfolio, this can be found at lifecoursetools.com, and it has a number of tools that we're going to be talking about this evening. So what does getting a break mean? And how often do you need one? So I need short breaks every day. Not necessarily a really long break all day long, but I need short breaks. And I need to have something to look forward to. One of the pieces of research has shown that families who are offered a voucher type program that allows them to use respite care has found that most people need about 240 hours or about 20 hours a month. The average family feels like they can take advantage of that type of situation. It really varies depending on your particular needs, how you're coping at that particular time, what else is going on in your life, who else is in your circle of support. So there's a variety of things that fall into place when you are looking at what you need for respite care. The less outside support you have, the more you may need those respite services. So the portfolio in the Charting a Life course framework that's on the website that we're going to talk about shortly is it asks you some questions. What's going on in your life? How would taking a break help me and the person I'm caring for or the people I'm caring for? And then what would I do if I had a break? Because oftentimes, and I've had this experience myself, I have had time and all I do is run in a circle because I can't believe I have this time and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my time. And I could spend that whole hour running in a circle, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. So I think asking yourself some questions about what you would do with your time before you get your break can be very, very helpful. And then what needs to be in place so that you are comfortable leaving the person that you care for in someone else's care. So it's something that you need to think about ahead of time. And then you might just have to use respite to take care of some business. It might not even be something you enjoy, but you have to do it, and you really don't want to take your family with you. So it might be grocery shopping. It might be getting your license renewed. Some of those things that are just a pain in the rear end. But hopefully it can be something pleasant as well. Why is respite important? Research shows that respite, which is personalized and purposely planned, so not just frittered and running in a circle like me, benefits not only the caregiver, but all family members, including siblings, spouses, partners, and others. And people who don't take that regular time to do the things they need and want to do experience greater stress. So, one of the things that you all may have heard before, and it's an old cliche, but those of you who have traveled on an airplane have been told, make sure that if there is any kind of an issue and the oxygen comes down, put your oxygen on first. Because you cannot put the oxygen on your child or your parent or others if you're not conscious. So that's the same thing with respite. You've got to get those breaks. Don't be like Alice in Wonderland when looking for good respite. Alice, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here to find good respite? Cheshire Cat, that depends a good deal on what you consider good respite. Alice, I don't care as long as I get a break. So if you don't know where you're going, you probably end up somewhere else. Alice knows she wants a break, and we've all been there, but hasn't thought about what her break is going to look like, how she might get it and have it be satisfying, and how she can make sure it's worry free. What would it take to get respite? What would need to happen for you to feel comfortable and confident taking a break? Some people would have no problem with that and are already doing that. But some people have had a negative experience or just fear gets in the way of being able to get care. The other thing that gets in the way is finding people. I know that's a major issue, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I do not have a magic wand, but we're definitely going to address that. So, also reflect on positive experiences where someone supported your family member other than you. What worked and what didn't work, and what was stressful. So be thinking about those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be respite, it could be school, it could be adult daycare, it could be employment, anything that you can think of where your family member got care from someone other than you and what made it good. This is difficult to see, but it is available on the website of the Charting a Life course tools. And basically what this is a portfolio that has you take a look at what is currently going on in your life, what would taking short breaks help me and the person I provide care for do, and if I had a break from caregiving, what would I do? Who would I spend time with? So this is just another tool that you don't have to use, but you can use that helps you think about the questions that you might want to ask as it relates to respite care and getting good respite. All right, I love this tool. This is a star, and this star goes through respite options in a very different way. One of the things it starts with, which is my favorite part, is personal strengths and assets. So, can your family members stay by themselves for short periods of time? Can they dial 911? Are they able to stay home without wandering? Do they know their address? What are some things that they bring to the table, the family member that needs respite? Can they express their needs and wants? So you want to look at personal strengths and assets and what that person brings to the table. And then relationships. Who are the relationships in your life that might help you with finding care? And these would be immediate or extended family, friends, mentors, student interns, teachers, people in your family member's life who are involved in coaching them or supporting them in some other ways, people through your spiritual worship. And I'm not going to go through the entire list, but you want to brainstorm as many relationships as possible. And these are not necessarily people who are going to do the care. They may do the care, or they may be a conduit to finding the care through somebody else, through word of mouth, through, you know what, my niece would love to do this kind of work, etc. Eligibility specific. What services can fund respite care or provide providers or provide, again, funding and some of those kinds of things. And so you can look at the eligibility specific things. Some of the funding that's out there to provide services for respite care include the Productive Living Board in St. Louis County and DD Resources in St. Louis City and the Department of Mental Health in Missouri and other resources in St. Charles and Jefferson County. So you can look at those resources. And then community-based services. So are there meetup groups that your family member can get involved in? Or hobbies or crafts or things that take them, camps, school, community-based programs that take them away from home and away from you as the caregiver and have them in a place that that makes sense for them to be, that's safe, that's stimulating. And another thing you can look at that's community based would be parent cooperatives where maybe you switch off your care. So maybe you watch someone and their family member, and maybe it's someone that can socially interact with your family member, and then you switch. So it's another way to provide socialization and exchange breaks. And then technology. What are some things that are out there that might be helpful in just making sure that you don't have to worry? A GPS locator. Can you be gone to the store and FaceTime your family member and see them while you're at the store? So just looking at all kinds of things that might be out there technology wise that might help you think about breaks or short periods where that your family member doesn't have to be with you. So having a clear picture of what is in place, what's in existence, is going to help you know where you're starting and how using respite is going to help improve your life. So how is that going to help you? You want to make sure that it's a planned break. And whether that's just enjoying spending an extra 15 or 20 minutes at the grocery store and going to a leisurely drive home and having your shoulders relaxed while you do it might be enough, or it could be that you need something more. But every little bit helps. What might a caregiver's vision for a good respite situation be, and how is that going to impact their good life? And what might be the care recipient's vision of a good life? Things that people want in their good life are going to be the same things that I think we all want. We want family and friends and a job that supports us and a way to pay our bills and meet our needs, enjoy things that we do, have a spiritual life, be able to get around reliably. There's so many things that make a life good. What is it that your vision for good respite would be? So, do you want a male or a female, or does it matter to you? What kind of age are you looking for? Do you want someone who's a young adult who's going to run around with your family member? Or do you want an older person who's going to be a little bit more experienced and calm? What kind of experience do they need to have? Can it be practical experience because they grew up with family members, or do they need to have specialized training? Can they do the physical things that need to be done, lifting, transferring, those kinds of things? So just taking an inventory about what that might look like in terms of the person. And then what kinds of details do you want? How often are you going to need it? Do you want it on the weekends only because the week is pretty busy? Do you want it so that you can take a vacation once a year? So look at that and think about that and how you might want to use your care. Sometimes it's easier to think about what you don't want in your vision for respite care. You certainly don't want your family member to be abused or neglected or ignored. those kinds of things. And examples of poor, what you don't want in your life are some things there at the bottom. Sadness, boredom, loneliness, no, not enough money, poor health. So we know what we don't want. Same thing with respite. You may have had a bad experience in the past with some kind of care or the quality, or maybe you yourself just couldn't relax. Maybe the care was okay, but you just couldn't let go, or it was too costly, or there it was too expensive. So there's a variety of things that can come up that make you think about not using respite or what you want to change in the future. Sometimes we use a trajectory to help us look at what above we want and what below we don't want and how we're going to get there. So sometimes it's more important to have the right questions than the right answers. So here is a trajectory, and you can see this goes straight out to, for the care recipient, what do we want for them? For the caregiver, what do we want for them? And then what does good respite look like? But instead of being a straight line to getting where you want to go, it's typically more of a step. So here you are, and you can certainly go down and get not so good respite, and you can go up. But sometimes there's plateaus. You find a person, they work out, then they move, or they change their life situation. So good respite is up here, but it may take a bit to get there. So we can circle back to the star after thinking about the trajectory, and you can add more things to the star after you've looked at the trajectory and looked at what makes a good respite situation. You can add those things to the different aspects of your star. And think about how you might be creative with your respite. There may be some people you haven't thought of before. Funding may not be something that's in your area, although I think for the St. Louis area, there's funding for respite, but in some areas there is not, or there is not enough. And in those cases, you might look at a parent co-op or doing some type of a swap so that you can still get your break and your family member can get a break too. So what are some of the roadblocks? Some of them are internal, and those are things like guilt. I really shouldn't leave them. Fear. We've talked about that a little bit. No trust in that the person is going to be capable. You don't want strangers in your home. You're lonely and you don't have other people around you. Or you've just put it off. I'm just going to do it later. I'll tell you, I've talked to families who their house wasn't perfect. And so it was really uncomfortable to have somebody come into their home. It wasn't organized. Things were kind of a mess. So it may be that that individual comes and takes your family member out to the park or to some other area. But there are ways around those. So we just need to look at what those roadblocks are and then start brainstorming. So there are definitely external roadblocks, and we've talked about that. Not able to find somebody. And that somebody has to be a person, but they also have to be qualified. And you have to be able to afford to pay them. And then who do you ask? Is it something that, what if they say no? Or what if they, might even be worse, what if they say yes, but you're not sure if they really mean yes and you feel guilty about it? So there's a lot of complications when you reach out and take that risk and ask somebody to do the care for you. And the other thing is sometimes there's a significant level of care that needs to happen. And the person that you need to hire is a nurse, and you don't have the funds or the resources to do that. What kinds of things did you enjoy? And this is one I really want you to think about even after tonight. What kinds of things did you enjoy before you became a family caregiver? I really want you to think about that. What's something you wanted to do for a long time, but you really just didn't feel like you could because you had responsibilities? And what would you do if you had a full day just for you? And what would it take for you to feel comfortable? So, those are some questions to ask yourself. And the one I really, really want you to ask is, what did you do before? So, charting the life course tools can help you see beyond your internal and external barriers by using that star and that trajectory and using it as a source of conversation with your family, and include your friends and your extended family. It doesn't mean maybe that they're going to do the care for you, but the people that you trust, include them in a circle, a respite circle, and ask them to give you feedback about where might you find care? Where would be some places you could ask? How can you overcome some of the fears that your friends and family know that you have? Some of those barriers are real, but some of those are self-imposed. That doesn't mean they're not real, but it does mean that you have more control over them. This tool is also on Charting the Life course tools, and it lays out a schedule. So it starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 10 p.m. And I've done this activity with families before, but basically what you do, you can do this for yourself, or you can do it for your family member, or both. But basically you color in using colors. Your colors are coded. So you might have, maybe blue is school. Maybe green is when grandma comes over and sits with him and they watch a TV show together every afternoon from 3 to 4, which gives you a break, whatever it might be. So you color in your schedule, and if you have a lot of white space, you know you need to plug some respite in. And in your case, with your schedule as a caregiver, if your schedule is too colorful, and you don't have any breaks in there, then you need to look at your schedule. So this tool can be very helpful in helping you really visualize what your day looks like. It's going to take some time to prepare yourself, but it's worth it to take the time to really think about who you're going to use, what that person is going to look like, and what your respite's going to look like. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is tips for finding a respite provider. It's not going to be an end-all be-all, but hopefully it will provide you with some points. So you want to network with coworkers, family, friends, neighbors, and professionals and get suggestions, because you're not just outright asking people to do the care, you're just asking them if they have any ideas. And if they know your family member, they may offer to do the care. You can reach out to local colleges and universities. They oftentimes have job boards where you can contact the department themselves. So some of the places that are out there are music therapy departments, OT departments, nursing, speech therapy. We actually had a family who wanted us to try to help them find an engineering student because their son had autism and he loved things computer and engineering. And so they didn't care if the person had experience working with someone with autism. They just wanted an engineering student. So you can think about how that might work for you. You can contact the state employment offices, so the Missouri Employment Services Office, and they also may have people that are looking to do care. You can ask teachers and day program staff and camp staff and all the people that currently work with your child or your adult about ideas for where to look. Your local high school, community service clubs, your local newspaper, your neighborhood paper. You can look through and there's a list of things that you can ask about whether or not they've had experience and what kind it is. There's a place for you to get a police background check. And then you can also, there's a set of questions that can help you ask the references for resources as well. One of the things that I usually ask families to do or advise families to do is, if you have someone that you're thinking about hiring to do care, you can start by interviewing them over the phone. Have them come for a face-to-face interview or a Zoom interview. Include your family member and see what kind of interaction takes place. And then try them. Try them for an hour while you're home. Maybe you're fixing dinner and this person is just going to hang out with your family member, and you can get a sense of how they are with them. Maybe you extend that visit. Maybe they just go play in the backyard while you're inside. Maybe next you actually leave and you tell that provider, I'll be back at 7:30, but you get done a little early and you get back at 7:15 or 7:20 or 7. So there are things you can do to wean yourself and wean the provider with each other, so that you have a sense of feeling like you can establish some trust with them. So through the St. Louis Respite Coalition and through the St. Louis ARC, we do maintain a tip sheet as well as a listing of individuals who do care that do not work for anyone but themselves. A cover letter that has a list of websites that you can go to try to locate people. Typically, the websites charge a fee, but it may be worth it to you because you're going to pay a fee if you advertise or different things like that. So it may be worth it to you to pay that fee. So however you do your care, be flexible, and as much as possible, include the person that is going to be receiving the care in the process. I am next going to turn it over to Sherry Morrison, who will be talking about a program model that's a little bit different than the St. Louis ARCS model. The St. Louis ARCS model, you find your own provider and we reimburse you. And Sherry's going to talk about Great Circles program at this point. So here are some respite resources. And as you can see here, there's Great Circle, St. Louis ARC, Easter Seals Midwest, Judavine Center, Recreation Council, and Synapsery, and United Cerebral Palsy Heartland. So all of these individual organizations are available and provide respite, and there's my contact information. At this point, as I said, I'd like to turn it over to Sherry so she can talk about Great Circles programs for respite.
I'm going to talk about Great Circles Respite Services, as Ann mentioned, and what my first slide basically summarizes what Ann just said so comprehensively. Basically, that successful parenting is going to come down to the parent and caregiver's mental and physical health. If we are not mentally healthy and physically healthy, obviously we cannot provide good care to our children. So one of the best things we can give our kiddos is to care for ourselves as much as we possibly can, so we can remain strong and ready for all the challenges that life is going to throw at us. So of course we have to take that time to recharge our batteries and focus on personal priorities. As Ann mentioned, sometimes it's not doing things that are fun. Sometimes it's just going to the store or running errands, but it's just nice to not have to drag our children along sometimes. So we have two different types of respite at Great Circle. We have our in-home and our facility-based. So this means that we can provide services both in your home, and then we also have a respite house in Rock Hill, right on the edge of Webster Groves, where we have children come to us. So whichever one you choose, what we're working on is the same. We're trying to develop the children's social and daily living skills. We're trying to help them gain more independence and more confidence so that they can improve their daily functioning. The kiddos that we serve are at all different levels of performance and functioning. So we have some kiddos who are nonverbal and need help with toileting, all the way up to one of our kiddos is 20 years old and he has a part-time job. And then we have everywhere in between. So we can basically work with all children who qualifies for our services and how our services are funded. These are at no cost to families. Our in-home services are available. Those are the ones in your home. Those are available to any child between the ages of 3 to 21 years of age. They have a diagnosed developmental disability and they live in St. Louis County. And then our facility-based services are available to children 7 to 20. The reason that one's a little bit older is because we do have children with a range of ages. So if they're younger than 7, we start to worry about safety if they're with older kids. So we kind of think just up to starting at 7 is better. And then these children also have a diagnosed developmental disability and they also live in St. Louis County. Typically, children with elopement or aggressive behaviors will not be as successful in that program because it is a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 children to 1 staff. And so if we have a child who has a lot of acting out behaviors and staff has to focus more energy on that child, obviously the other children would not have the same level of supervision. And so we just tend to avoid children who might have those aggressive behaviors just for safety concerns. The services are provided, as I mentioned, the in-home take place in the child's home and their community. And then the facility-based services take place at our respite house, which is located on Euclid Avenue in Rock Hill. So it's not the Euclid down in the central west end in the city, but we're in St. Louis County, right on the edge of Webster Groves, about a half mile south of Manchester off Rock Hill Avenue. And then this house is, it's just a little house. It's a little 2-bedroom house, but it's just a really cute little house that's designed to provide a secure, safe, and supportive environment for our children. So what the respite services will look like are going to be very individualized depending on the child. So the in-home services is going to be a one-on-one service that takes place in the child's home. And then again, it might involve going out and about in the community. Obviously, once rapport is established, so I always tell the staff, you want to get to know the child, you want to get to know kind of their routines, kind of how they might respond in certain situations before you take them out so that you're prepared for anything that might happen. So what we're doing is we're focusing on the strengths of the child while we're working to help them gain independence on those social and daily living skills. So every child is going to have some individualized goals written at the time of intake. When I meet with the parents, we'll kind of talk about where the child's current level of functioning is and what our goals are for them. So obviously, we're always going to work to set the bar a little bit higher, gain more independence while we're working with them on those skills. So it could just be things like more independence with hygiene tasks, washing hands after they use the bathroom, cleaning up after themselves after they use the bathroom. Things like table manners, so kiddos who eat kind of fast and make a mess, slowing down, taking smaller bites, things like that, cleaning up after themselves after they eat, throwing trash away, maybe doing chores, things like that, where they're taking more independence with their self-care tasks. And then obviously those social skills. A lot of our kids struggle with social interaction. So it's going to be things like maybe personal space, eye contact, having more of a reciprocal interaction, or for our kiddos who are nonverbal, even maybe just making choices, pointing to things that they want, those types of things. So again, kind of where the kiddos are, where they are today, and just trying to get them to advance those skills a little bit so they can gain more independence. Safety awareness is a big one. A lot of our kids maybe not aware of safety things that are hot, stranger danger, that kind of stuff. So we might be working with them on those things that are going to keep them safe. And then the facility-based services that take place at the respite house are very similar. It's just a little bit more of a social interaction available to the children because there are peers there. So right now, so pre-COVID, we would have 6 children come in with 2 staff. So it's a 3-to-1 ratio. Right now with COVID, we're trying to respect all the guidelines that are in place by the CDC in St. Louis County. So things like social distancing and mask wearing. So we are down to 3 children right now with 2 staff, and we're getting ready to bump that up probably to 4 children. So it'll kind of be a 2-on-1, or really sometimes it's even like 2. Yeah, it's a real small ratio, which right now, which has been really nice. But what we're working on with the children at the respite house are the same as the in-home services. It's just the peers are there, so we can have some more peer interactions. So we're doing things like arts and crafts activities. We're doing cooking groups. We're pre-COVID, obviously for safety reasons. We're not really doing food groups right now, but playing games. We'll do puzzles. We'll go out in the backyard and play games and all kinds of things that it's basically a play date for children who don't always get play dates. So this is kind of their opportunity to come to us and interact with peers doing fun things. We do a lot of outings in the community. We go to a lot of parks. Right now, we're trying to do a lot of things outside when the weather permits. So we do botanical gardens and the zoo, a lot of local parks, just go for walks. So we're always practicing those safety things, staying with the group. Always just kind of making sure that the kids are aware we're in parking lots. So you need to stay close to the car, that kind of thing. So again, same types of things, working on those daily living and those social interactions with the peers present, which is a really nice opportunity for our kids. The funding that we use is the same that I think the other programs are also going to use. We use a combination of the Productive Living Board, which is shortened to PLB, and the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund, which is shortened to CSF. The Productive Living Board, as I'm sure many of you may already know, does have a limit. Pre-COVID, things are a little bit different now, but pre-COVID, every child had a limit of 504 hours per year. And that was across all agencies. So if your child uses services through Great Circle and ARC and maybe UCP Heartland, those 504 hours were all one bucket that we all kind of have to share. So when we have children who come to us using PLB funds for something else, we will try to use our CSF funds for that child, because my goal is to try to have everyone get as much support as possible. And I know that those hours get stretched pretty thin. So a lot of times we'll say, you just use your PLB funds for St. Louis ARC, and then we'll take the CSF funds, which doesn't have a limit per child. So we try to just be as generous with that as we can, because we just want you to get the support that you need. So then the facility-based services are provided typically on the weekends. So pre-COVID, again, we would have the house open pretty much Friday, and we would run through Sunday afternoon. So we would always have those 6 spots, and we would try to just get those, get as many children as we could within those spots. So we would kind of puzzle piece it together. So let's say you had a wedding out of town and you needed the whole weekend. We would look at your child and kind of where they are and the kiddos that maybe they interact well with. And then we would place other kids there that would be a good fit so that they have those social interactions. So if your kiddo was going to be there all weekend, we might have one kiddo come in on Friday and leave on Saturday, somebody else come in on Saturday, leave on Sunday. Some parents only want day hours, so we would have maybe a Saturday child, and then when they leave, another one would come in. So we're always trying to put those spots together so we have all 6 spots full, but we're kind of just putting it together based on the weekend and the requests that we have. With COVID, we are not really doing the overnights right now. We're just doing day hours on Saturdays and Sundays. So like 6 or 7 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then we also have days available on those school holidays when parents still need the support, but the children aren't in school. So things like MLK, President's Day, spring break, winter break. And then we do have 12 weeks over the summer where we're open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we have basically 8:30 to 4:30. And we'll have the same group of kids come in each week. So we'll have one group this week and then a different group the next week. And we're always just trying to share those spots among as many families as possible. And then again, for the facility-based services, we do use those PLB and CSF funds depending upon what the child has and what they're using other places. And then sometimes kiddos will come to us with maybe some DMH funds, some waivers, and we'll try to be creative and use whatever we can, again, just to make sure you're getting that support and that these services are provided at no cost to you. And then just trying to get you signed up for these services. So what that would look like is you are more than welcome to reach out. We do have our website, greatcircle.org. You're welcome to contact me at 942-9931, or you're always welcome to email me. I'm at sherry.morrison@greatcircle.org if you have any more questions. And what that would look like is we would communicate. I would send you an intake packet. We do need proof of diagnosis, which I can cover if we talk, but then we would meet and we would do an intake where we would write the goals, kind of find out where your child is functioning so that I can share all that information with our staff. We would put together a packet. We would always start with a short visit, have the child come in for a few hours for the first visit, just to make sure that the child feels comfortable and kind of gets that they're just here for a short time. Mom and dad are coming back to pick them up, that this isn't a place that they're staying long term, just so they feel comfortable, meet some staff, meet some of the other children. And then we would start scheduling those longer placements after that initial visit. And then the in-home program, what that would look like is, as Ann mentioned, there's lots of different ways to find staff. We do provide our staff to work with you. We pay them as Great Circle employees, but a major issue is finding the staff. I don't have a pool of staff available. So you would use all those different places that Ann suggested, maybe a friend of a friend, someone's child that is looking for some experience, or somebody that you know from church or something like that. And then we would work to hire them through Great Circle. They would go through our training, and then that staff is assigned to work one-on-one with your family and your child. Can you think of anything else, Ann?
No, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. So that model is a little bit different than the ARCS model, which is you find your own provider and you train your own provider, and they work for themselves. So in Sherry's program, there's either facility based, or there is the opportunity to have your family have someone hired and trained, and then provide you service. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sue Fleming with the Recreation Council, who's going to talk about respite care as it relates to recreation and the Recreation Council and some of the things that they're working on.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you everyone for being here. We kind of have a different twist on what, our programs can assist people in finding recreation programs for individuals that they care for. So I'm really excited to be able to share the information. So thank you. So a little bit about the Recreation Council. We're a nonprofit organization. We were incorporated in 1983 to serve individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, and we help them access recreation and leisure activities of their interest and choice. We serve St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. One thing that we believe at the Recreation Council is recreation is for everyone. Some people say, but my child has, this support need, or my child has this interest, we really do our best to become familiar with all the different leisure and recreation opportunities out there so that we can provide you family members or individuals with developmental disabilities a wide range of different activities so that you can make those choices based on not only support needs, but also on their, in addition to their interests. So we're funded by the St. Louis Office for Developmental Disabilities Resources, the Productive Living Board for St. Louis County Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, and the Developmental Disabilities Resource Board of St. Charles County. If you ever have an opportunity, to meet someone from their staff or from their board, please thank them, because they have been wonderful, especially during this COVID time. They have been very flexible with our funding to make sure that The people we serve are served well and are accommodated during this time. So please thank them if you have that opportunity. So there's no doubt that being a care provider or caregiver is a full-time job. It can be stressful and demanding without much opportunity for a break. When you need to take a vacation or have lunch with an old friend, run errands, clean your house, have a mental health day, keep your loved one engaged in different things, and you want to know that your child or your son or daughter is in good hands. So I challenge you to look at recreation and leisure programs as a way of providing respite for you know, as you meet those different needs, going for the walk, going for lunch, and so on. But how do you know which recreation programs are quality programs for your loved one? Contact the Recreation Council for information on existing programs. You know, we have information on both specialized programs, and those are programs that are exclusively for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or inclusive recreation programs, which I'm pleased to say that there are quite a numerous different programs out there that are inclusive. Such as your YMCA, your Park and Recreation departments, the Jewish Community Center, your Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. Many of them have inclusion services. So please look at those programs as well. Does your loved one need additional support? And if so, what type of support does he or she need? You know, does that mean, you know, your loved one has physical support needs and needs somebody to be with them, perhaps at a day camp, where they need to change in and out of a swimsuit, or feeding during their lunchtime, or whatever that might be, to you know, supports for behavior challenges. So these are the type of supports you would need to know. Always ask, you know, is the program accredited? You know, if you go to our website at recreationcouncil.org, you'll see, for example, in our summer opportunities guide for 2021, we do list, like, for example, the overnight camps, whether they're ACA accredited, that's American Camp Association accredited. That means a lot. They go through some real stringent, you know, qualifications in order to become accredited. And there's other programs out in our community that are accredited as well. So that's really good information to know. Also, you know, does their staff receive training on disabilities issues? You know, many of the camp programs, for example, day camp and overnight camp, they put their staff through some, you know, pretty intensive training on serving individuals with disabilities. And I think that's very, very important. But also, does it allow does the program allow the family and the participant, for example, to visit prior to the beginning of the program? You could bring your loved one to familiarize yourselves with the surrounding, the staff, programs, etc., so that it's not so intimidating for that individual once they go to that program. Ask for references to speak with other families, but also very, very important, you know, I always encourage family members to jot down your loved one's needs and ask how they will be addressed. I think this is very, very important to give them as much information as possible so that they can set up supports in advance if the support is needed. Also very important, you know, I mentioned accreditation, but it's also, you know, good to get the input from family members that have, you know, maybe sent their loved ones to a recreation program. You know, a parent's perspective is always wonderful information to get. They're the ones that have experienced the program. They know what worked, what didn't work, you know, just all sorts of things that they can provide the families. When accessing recreation programs, you need to know where you go to get information. So the Recreation Council, although the name may apply or imply to you that we are a direct service provider, that we provide those camps or tennis programs or whatever, but we are actually a recreation resource or a clearinghouse, if you will. Uh, Basically, we provide, again, individuals choices, based on the information you tell us. So we take phone calls from individuals, emails, we do a lot of presentations and so on, just talking about all the different leisure and recreation choices. We can sit down with individuals, and explore some of their interests. Sometimes they're not even sure what they're looking for because they've never experienced some of those recreation programs or have never been introduced to an activity. So, it's just a great way to kind of do a leisure survey and really look at what their interests are. So we provide choices through those information and referral services. The voucher programs at the Recreation Council have been very positive. We have been doing this for over, probably 20 years. We started with our summer overnight residential camp voucher as a result of family members coming to the Productive Living Board board meeting and saying, you know what, it's wonderful that you're providing funding for our sons and daughters to go to these 4 specialized camps. However, I would really like it if my daughter could go to the Girl Scout camp this summer with her peers, from school. So the Recreation Council, since we do not provide direct services and we provide information on those different programs, we were put in a great position to be able to administer these voucher programs. So the first one is actually the overnight residential camp program. And with all of our voucher programs, the participant of the voucher programs must have an intellectual or developmental disability. We do have age requirements, as you can see on the screen here, in terms of ages. And they must live in the counties in which they receive funding. We do, like Sherry and I'm sure Ann, do require that we get a eligibility for the individual to participate in the programs. This is usually done by their DMH case coordinator or through a physician or perhaps an IEP from school. So there's various ways in which you can actually get this information. We do have a form that actually can be signed by the physician or by the school, or a letter will suffice as long as we're getting the information we need that the individual does live in St. Louis County, does have an intellectual developmental disability, and the age, of course. So those are the things that we're looking for. The overnight residential camp voucher is for individuals who are looking to attend an overnight residential camp. There are many recreation or residential camp programs, and we list those residential camps in our summer opportunities guide that can be found on our website. We also every week put out a publication that highlights a variety of different recreation programs, things that are maybe happening during that week, or maybe information that didn't make it to the guide. So we really encourage people to go to our website to learn about all these different recreation programs. But the overnight camp is usually a 5 to 7 day and night experience. And again, we have both specialized camps. They're just for individuals with disabilities or inclusive camp programs as well. Ages are 5 and above. What we do provide is up to $550 toward 1 week of camp each year. We run on a fiscal year of October 1 through September 30th. So you do need to apply each year for your experience. for your loved one's experience. If the individual has high support needs and the camp asks for a higher rate because they need to hire additional staff, then we can go up to $825 for that camp program. If the person needs a one-to-one support, we need some information from your case manager or from your physician, whoever it may be, that indeed the individual needs one-to-one support. We serve in St. Louis County alone about 296 individuals. This year is different. Last year, there was a lot of cancellations of different overnight camps due to the COVID-19 virus. And this year we are seeing programs open back up again. There may be a limitation on the number of campers or fewer individuals, able to attend, or they've set up other precautions in order to keep the camper safe. So if you contact a camp, as a family member, I would certainly ask them what precautions are being put in place to make sure that your son or daughter is safe. The mini camp voucher is very similar to the overnight camp. You can do a 2-day camp program or a 3-day, 2-night program, and this is a really good program for individuals who have never perhaps been to an overnight camp that's longer than the 3 days, just to kind of get your feet wet. Family members really appreciate this also because it helps with their concerns as well, that it's a shorter period of time. But this is, again, for all ages, 5 and above. We even have what's called family overnight mini camps. And, the family can actually go with the participant to a family program. And what we do is we prorate that based on the number of members in your family to pay for just the participant. The adventure voucher. This is very similar again to the residential overnight program, but this is for 18 years, for individuals 18 years and older who want to go out perhaps on a weekend trip or an activity that's either provided by a specialized organization, which there are a couple of those in the St. Louis area, one being Sunny Hill Adventures and the other one being St. Louis Arc Escapes. So, those are two. And then we also have individuals who have used it, for example, to go down to Trot Lodge for, their horseback riding weekend or, their fishing weekend or whatever it might be. But with these experiences, individuals are learning independent living skills. They're participating in activities that they're interested in or really want to participate in. So they're really great programs. We can pay up to $720 per fiscal year, again, running on October 1 through September 30th. So, one individual may choose just one activity through Sunny Hill or through Arc Escapes, or they may use it for several different programs that it costs less. So we can actually assist individuals in locating those different programs based on their interests. Our CARE voucher is actually, CARE stands for Community Access Recreation Experiences. And this program is for individuals with developmental disabilities who want to participate in community-based programs or swim lessons or things like that are out in the community, or programs not currently funded by our funding source. Okay, so for example, in St. Louis County, we cannot fund programs that already receive Productive Living Board funds. So there are programs out there, that do not receive their funds that we could use, or you could use the CARE funds with. So One option we had, again, due to the flexibility given to us by our Senate Bill 40 boards, Productive Living Board, DD Resources, and so on, we were able to use some of the community access recreation experience voucher funds for purchasing tablets for participants who were engaged in or wanted to engage in virtual recreation programs. Um, as you can imagine, for the participant, it was very difficult, that, many of their programs were closed down because of COVID. So we wanted people to stay engaged. The recreation providers were wonderful. They worked hard to revise their programs to offer them virtually. So individuals not only use the tablets to access those virtual recreation programs, but they also used it to stay connected with their loved ones, their family, their friends. It really is a win-win situation. People are going out and doing things that they enjoy, even virtually. And I really don't see that a lot of that is going to change. I mean, we will go back, of course, to the face-to-face programs, but I do see, because of transportation issues and other reasons, that might preclude somebody from attending a recreation program, that some of the providers will continue to offer some of that virtual programming once we're safe with the COVID situation. So that's really exciting. So we can pay up to $350 toward a tablet program or toward the care voucher, in which you can choose a recreation program, again, out in the community that your son or daughter wants to engage in, or virtually. So that program is available to all ages. Very excited about that. The next one is our recreation support voucher. And basically this came about when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. It definitely opened a lot of doors to people with disabilities to access a variety of different recreation opportunities, as well as other situations. But for recreation, one thing that was not mandated by law, when somebody wanted to go out and involve themselves in a community recreation program and they had physical support needs, that was not mandated by law that the provider had to provide that type of service. Thankfully, our Senate Bill 40 boards felt that, yes, that's really a shame, because, individuals that had those high support needs were not going to be able to participate as much as we wanted them to. So we set up this recreation support voucher for all ages, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who needed somebody to attend with them one of those community-based recreation programs. And I'm going to give you an example, because that's a lot of words. We have individuals who want to attend a day camp. And in a day camp situation, they may be at that day camp, from 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes longer because there's before and after care. With our voucher, the recreation supports voucher, families can hire somebody to go with their son or daughter to provide that level of care they need. For example, as I mentioned before, when they're in a day camp situation, they may need assistance with using the restroom, assistance with diapering, assistance with feeding at lunchtime, changing in and out of swimsuits, etc. So what we do is, once the service has been rendered, the family pays the provider when we reimburse the family members for that service. Like Sherry, we families hire, screen, train the provider. And again, we give different examples on how they can, find those providers, such as Ann, that Ann had mentioned. Many families have been successful in doing that. We even encourage them to maybe even use their respite provider if possible. So It's, we definitely give them opportunities to look and identify for individuals. It could even be your cousin, that lives, in the same city, that maybe even wants to participate in a program. Just as long as the individual is age 16 and you feel comfortable in, using that provider. You know, personal care is a very delicate situation, and we want families to know that person who is providing that care. And, so in hiring and screening and training that individual, that they feel comfortable with who they have decided to provide that care. The last one is our after school extended day voucher program. This is for ages 13 to 21 if they're attending school in the fall, um, after, when they're 21. Um, we also in St. Louis County have a program called Summer Socialization. So this goes outside the 9 months of school time. But with the after school extended day voucher, families can hire somebody to come into the home to provide care for the child while they're still working. So it must be a working family or working parent or parents, in order to access this voucher. Um, Individuals are reimbursed directly. The family is reimbursed directly, and then they pay the provider. Again, it's a choice of who they have as a provider. Um, Individuals, use it for in-home care, or they can use it for somebody to take their son or daughter out into the community after hours. We have families who have used it to take their son or daughter to the local park and recreation department, and they swim or they do the laps, on the track or whatever that might be. So we encourage that so that they also get some activity in addition to maybe, just being at home and so on. So it's just a great opportunity to know that their son or daughter is cared for. In St. Louis City, individuals who have sons or daughters in, for example, the sheltered work facility, and they come home prior to the parent or parents coming home, they may use this voucher as well. So that program is, we allow 522 hours of service, and we reimburse, and I believe that it's $6 an hour, knowing that families would also have to, pay a copay, which is the cost, the actual cost that you would negotiate with the provider. With all of our programs, there is a copay. For example, with our overnight residential camp voucher, you pay the camp deposit. We pay again up to $550. If it's a camp that costs, $1,000, then we still pay the $550 unless it's high support needs, which is $825. But you're going to pay the deposit as well as what additional monies are on top of that. Mini camp, again, it's the camp deposit. Adventure program, it's based on 10% of the actual cost. The care voucher is similar to, it's similar to the others, but it is a 10% copay that the participant is responsible for. Recreation support voucher, I believe it's $8 an hour, and knowing that you're probably going to have to pay the provider more, and that's then considered your copay. And then as well as the after school extended day voucher. So, it's really wonderful. We used to say, yes, pick the programs that are of interest to you and the activities and so on. And with these vouchers, it has really allowed people to make those choices. And we're seeing people, access wrestling clubs, circus camps, just a wide variety of programs, and it's just so exciting to see, what they're choosing. But I have to tell you that we do a lot of surveying of individuals who have participated in our voucher programs. And it's real exciting because we just received one. And this is kind of a turn on what we've been talking about here, is that it's also a respite for the participant, because he said, I loved it because I was able to get away from my parents. He said, I love them dearly, but it was just nice for me to be able to get away from family and parents, so it's so true. I mean, think about it when you were a teen or, even a kid, you went away to camps or whatever. Wasn't it nice just to kind of be away and just enjoy yourself without other family members there? So again, that's just a kind of a twist on it.
Can you use multiple vouchers for the same individual?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have one individual who has used all of our voucher programs, so yes, you can access as many voucher programs, but with the overnight residential camp voucher and the mini camp voucher, you can either do 1 week of the overnight residential camp voucher, or you can do a mini camp voucher, which gives you 2 experiences. So it really equals about the same.
This is the contact information for the various programs in each area. So St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County.
I want to go back to our recreationcouncil.org website. You can find out all sorts of information. You can actually find programs based on interest. For example, if you like baseball, you can just put in baseball, pull up all the different baseball programs in the area. You could just pull up camps and it comes up with camps and contacts and everything like that. So one other reason that people go to our website is, again, to get our different publications. We have quarterly newsletters that highlight programs. We have our summer opportunities guide that lists all the summer activities going on for all ages. We have a guide to leisure services, which is a comprehensive guide that doesn't give dates of programs or contact people because that becomes obsolete once you print it. But lots of great information, and also people can find out more about our different voucher programs, including the hourly rates that I don't have on the top of my head, but they can find out about that information as well as get the applications for each one of those voucher programs. And then again, we encourage people to go to our website at least weekly because all that information changes. If there's a change in the camp, for example, they're not able to provide the camp due to COVID, that will be listed as well. So please visit often, but I don't want to just push you toward our publications. Please know that the Recreation Council staff is always available to you. Please email us, call us, whatever. We want to be there to be your resource for leisure and recreation programming. My contact information is not on there, but you can call that 314-726-6044, and my extension is 101. So I'll look forward to hearing from you. And my email is just sfleming@recreationcouncil.org.
We had one more question, which was, unfortunately, yes, you do have to apply for each program through each organization. So if you want recreational services, you would apply through the Recreation Council. If you want respite care through Great Circle, you would apply through Great Circle and contact Sherry. And if you want to apply for respite care through the St. Louis Arc, you would have to contact me. So unfortunately, you do have to do that. But the other thing that is available is there are people out there who can help you with your applications and your resources and things like that. So feel free to reach out to us, because if you need help with that process, we can help you. Yes, you can use respite through all agencies, but as Sherry said earlier, the maximum number of respite hours that you can receive in a fiscal year or a 12-month period is 504 hours, and that is between all the agencies combined. Yes. So this person asked if they can use the same provider if the funding is through several different agencies. And yes, indeed, you can. So you could have someone that you hire to do respite care that gets trained through Great Circle that also does before and after care for your family member through the Recreation Council or through one of the care programs that accesses community resources. So yes.
But Anne, just to point out, you could not bill the same time, day, and hour through both agencies. It would have to be different times and hours, obviously, but.
Absolutely. Good point, Sherry. Yes. We look forward to hearing from any and all of you. Feel free to reach out to any of us, and we are happy to connect you with the others.